Hey, welcome back to Anti-King. I'm going to be attempting my most ambitious video yet. I was recently inspired by videos made by Johnny Two Cellos and LS Mark. Johnny Two Cellos ranked every episode of what is probably now my favorite series of all time in BoJack Horseman. And LS Mark did the most insane video I've ever seen, in which he spends 6 hours ranking, in depth, all 600 plus Simpsons episodes. LS Mark also has quite a few videos covering South Park, and while I have some pretty major criticisms of his doing so, I put 2 and 2 together and decided to rank what is still to this day one of my favorite series of all time. I spent a lot of time with South Park growing up. It was the first TV show I fell in love with post Ed, Edd and Eddy era Cartoon Network. I remember being so drawn to the show immediately just for its willingness to be so different. It had the attitude of Beavis and Butthead, which I also loved, but with sharper edges. To be honest, I've kind of outgrown the show in a lot of ways, and some moments and opinions expressed in the show are genuinely worth criticism. I also wanted to specify that the rankings will roll a series of slides ranking the episodes from worst to first, but I won't be breaking down every single episode individually. Shout out to LS Mark for having the patience to do so, but I don't. However, I will interject here and there to talk a little bit more in detail about a few notable episodes, as well as a few that I feel people will think are ranked too high or too low. Before I get into the rankings, however, I wanted to break down what I view as the different eras of South Park as well, as the show has changed several times during its run, even in recent years. So let's get right into that.
You guys.
These seasons are what I call the fart era because, well, that's more or less a lot of what the humor in these episodes boiled down to. This was the crass, immature version of South Park that drove parents crazy in the late 90s. The bulk of the humor is carried by shock value, such as Charles Manson joining in on their Christmas celebration, or a lady with a conjoined fetus attached to her head. This isn't the most blatantly offensive era of South Park by any means, but it's by far the most stupid to varying degrees of success. After initially being ordered to create 6 episodes of the show, South Park was an instant hit and was soon after ordered 8 more episodes to finish out the season, a second season, and a movie. Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the creators of South Park, who do almost all the writing, directing, and voice acting themselves, took the movie very seriously as aspiring filmmakers. They also didn't foresee the show sticking around for much longer and decided to fully throw themselves into the production of the movie. Because of this, a lot of the writing and directing duties were delegated off during the 2nd and 3rd season, which we'll get into in a minute. And in my opinion, the show really suffered for it. While Trey and Matt continuing to do all the voice acting and consulting on scripts kept the show from being completely unbearable, and certainly not as bad as some things down the line, the stories were extremely simplistic and were mainly just excuses to get the boys all together to cuss about stuff. There's some gems in here for sure, but don't expect a ton of these videos to be hovering around the top spots.
You guys.
The slightly smarter fart era. In episode commentaries, Trey has said that season 3 also did not receive their full attention as they worked on the movie, but at the very least, their disappointment in season's 2 final product resulted in Trey and Matt being more involved. That's never more apparent than in episode 1, Rainforest Schmainforest. The episode reminds me a lot of later season episodes in that it really has something to say. However, slightly that something may miss the mark at times, in my opinion, and it pulls no punches in saying that thing. In season 4, we really start to see peaks of just how brilliant the show would soon become. At some point during this season, work on the movie was completed, and I think it really shows. These seasons have some of South Park's best stuff, but most of the episodes meander in slightly elevated season 2 type stuff still. So while a few of these episodes will end up fairly high, I wouldn't expect a ton of them near the top.
You guys.
This is it. This is the absolute pinnacle of South Park. In seasons 5 through 8, their satire becomes even sharper and their message even more pointed. This era is littered with the classics. It's almost impossible to pick a few to talk about. They had episodes that took on serious political issues such as censorship in season 5's It Hits the Fan, and the debate surrounding the Iraq War in 2003 in season 7's I'm a Little Bit Country, and even gives us the best election special ever aired on TV in season 8's Douche and Turd. It has some of the most vicious celebrity takedown episodes, including Jennifer Lopez and Fat Butt and Pancake Head, Paris Hilton in Stupid Spoiled Horror Video Playset, and Michael Jackson in The Jeffersons. But most of all, what really separates this era from the others as the golden era are what I like to call the adventure episodes. In my opinion, South Park is at its best when they put the four boys in some kind of conundrum and send them on their way. Exploring 80s sports movie tropes in Aspen, discovering Earth is a reality show and canceled, fighting terrorists in Iraq and the Prime Minister in Canada in a pair of Christmas episodes, returning a powerful porno in Return of the Lord of the Rings to the Two Towers, or scrambling to fix a disastrous mistake in Good Times with Weapons. These episodes are what, to me, make this series what it is. Expect just a ton of these up at the top.
Here you go.
Seasons 9 and 10 take a slight turn away from the adventure episodes prevalent in the preceding seasons and favors an approach that involves diving more deeply into specific characters or dynamics between characters, such as diving into Mr. Garrison's gender identity and sexuality or the endless number of Cartman character studies, while also starting to strike up more larger-than-life themes and major issues. These episodes aren't bad by any means, and you'll see a few fairly high.
Here you go.
I have to make specific distinctions between seasons 11 and 12 because they really are that different to me. Season 11 is stacked, with nearly every episode hitting all its high notes beautifully. It's absolutely loaded with classics as well, and you can expect to see quite a few of these high in the rankings too.
Here you go.
You're not supposed to be bored watching South Park, but that's what this season is. Boring. The show takes some really mean-spirited gags too far and stretches minor laughs into major plot points, and it just doesn't even feel like South Park at times. All the meaningful lessons, all the carefree exploration of youth, it's all just kind of gone here. There's some genuinely funny moments throughout this season and some really interesting ideas for sure, but I don't think there's a single episode in this bunch I'd consider like classic South Park. Even the high notes of this season have some serious flaws to them.
Here you go.
Season 13 was a major rebound over Season 12 basically immediately. With episodes like The Ring, The Coon, Fat Beard, and Well Whores, I almost wanted to put 13 in a similar category as Season 11. There are definitely some misses throughout, however, and Seasons 14 and 15 suffered from Trey and Matt once again being distracted, this time by the Broadway play they were developing, Book of Mormon. While these two seasons are filled with their fair share of misses, the show managed to retain the heart that really separates South Park from other shows, and thus didn't deserve the criticism I often give Season 12 and another season. There's a few episodes here that will be ranked very, very high.
Here you go.
Okay, so this is when South Park started to most closely resemble what we see today. Season 16 was the last to include the summer break mid-season, as well as the last to include 14 episodes, as had been the case for nearly 10 consecutive seasons to that point. At that time, Trey and Matt were working solely on South Park and had no plans to do anything other than South Park. This allowed them to really hone in on the subject matter and experiment with serialization to different extents. The episodes held more weight than the last few seasons and were much more topical. Some of these were still definite misses, but don't be surprised to see a few of these fairly high in the ranking.
Here you go.
Serialization, while still trying to turn episodes around in 6 days, all while being both topical and funny, was a pretty ambitious idea. Trey and Matt have admitted recently that they felt some kind of pressure to live up to and bit off more than they could chew. Throw in Donald Trump's unexpected upset in the election, throwing the planned course for the season completely in the shredder, and we ended up with a disjointed, unfocused, unfunny, and worst of all again, boring mess. These will be very, very low, with only a select few episodes really being considered worse by me.
Here you go.
The seasons after the disastrous season 20 remind me a lot of seasons 16 through 19 in tone, with season 22 making the interesting decision to switch the narrative focus to Randy Integrity Farms rather than the boys. The pandemic episode was a little bit scattered, but man, I could and probably will later rave about the vaccination special for a hot minute. These episodes are great, and if I was making this list 5 years from now, I have a feeling a few of them would have been placed much higher. However, given how recent they are, it's really hard to compare them against series classics I've loved for over a decade now. Alright, so now that I've broke down what I feel are the different eras of South Park, let's jump right into ranking them. I'm just going to let them play until we hit the first surprising entry in the list, so strap in. Here we go.
Here you go. bastards! You gay?
The first shocker will probably be About Last Night. A lot of fans see this as a classic, and I remember how much it was talked about at the time. Aside from the novelty of the episode's quick turnaround, there's not really a lot to love here in my opinion. The Ocean's 11 parody is funny enough, but the episode really has nothing to say. It's not a bad episode by any means, but one that pretty much lost my interest after one viewing.
You gay?
I'm going downtown, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere, humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're talking day or night, people spouting out in headlights.
And on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards!
I'm going downtown, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere, humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're talking day or night, people spouting out in headlights.
And on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards! You gay?
I'm going downtown, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere, humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're talking day or night, people spouting out in headlights.
And on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards!
My bias against season 12 might be showing in these rankings as yet another fan favorite and media darling ends up outside of the top 200 for me. This episode has some great moments, and I still quote the line, "They call it cheesing because it's fun to do."
Why cheesing? Because it's fun to do.
To this day. I love Cartman's storyline with Mr. Kitty, but outside of that, this is another episode that doesn't have anything to really say. It's not really an adventure, it's not really a satire or political or a celebrity takedown. It's just kinda nothing. That being said though, it's definitely funnier than a lot of other episodes, and there's something to be said for that.
You gay?
I'm going downtown, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere, humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're talking day or night, people spouting out in headlights.
And on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind.
Finally moving away from season 12 into a season 9 upset. This episode is often listed as a classic, as one of the best episodes of all time, but I don't know, something about it didn't do much for me. A lot of the references became dated incredibly quickly, and for the most part it just doesn't stand out to me like it does other people.
You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking tailgates. People spouting howdy.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can.
Another episode that just doesn't do it for me like it does other people. It's not that the episode isn't funny, it definitely is. I love all the horror themed stuff. This one is a lot less about the strength of this episode and a lot more about how great the episodes from here on out really are.
You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking tailgates. People spouting howdy.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking tailgates. People spouting howdy.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards. You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking tailgates. People spouting howdy.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards.
This one's hard for me to break down because I think it's actually almost a bit generous for it. Still, a lot of fans would consider it heresy to have the Jeffersons outside of the top 100. It's another episode that just really didn't age very well. It has some of the most quintessential South Park moments while still being one of the weaker overall entries from the golden era of South Park.
You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking tailgates. People spouting howdy.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can
I actually wanted to stop here for the opposite reason, as I've been stopping. P being this high would probably be considered a surprise to most fans. I can't say there's necessarily an overwhelming amount of dislike for this episode, as much as it's just kind of meh. Like, it tends to get forgotten. But I feel like that misses out here. These are the South Park characters operating at their best, and one of the better later season adventure episodes. This one is severely underrated in my opinion and holds a special place in my heart.
You guys.
I anticipate this will be the biggest upset on this list. This episode is overwhelmingly, critic after critic, fan after fan, listed as the #1 episode. Is it the best South Park episode? No. To me, no.
You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking paradise. People spouting out in heaven.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking paradise. People spouting out in heaven.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't
I was always a huge fan of Mr. Garrison episodes, even if oftentimes they ran a little too far on the edgy side for me. After years of seeing him relegated to mostly a background character, it was fantastic to see him come back in full force in such a funny, cleverly written episode.
You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking paradise. People spouting out in heaven.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere. Humble folks without temptation.
Going down south, I'm gonna leave my woe behind.
And we're parking paradise. People spouting out in heaven.
Heading on up south, I'm gonna see if I can't unwind. Come on down south, I can meet some friends of mine.
You bastards. You guys.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
Another fantastic Boys Go on an Adventure episode. This one features Tweak in place of Kenny, and some of those episodes are my absolute favorite. I love the Lucas and Spielberg critiques. I love their takes in general on art.
I'm going down south.
Both touching and absurd, you might be surprised to see this episode so high. Honestly, I kinda was too. Throughout the process, it just kept moving its way up until eventually I settled on it here. It's possibly the most self-reflective South Park has ever been. And the guest appearance by Bill Hader alongside Trey as a britches-saving farmer still kills me every time.
Come on, Bridges. We're setting you free. Come on down South Park and meet some friends of mine.
This is peak South Park. Unquestioned. The script is clever, meta play on the exploitation of reality shows and how it relates to the world, and packed with hilarious one-offs and bits. The bit at the proctologist office between Kyle and Cartman might legitimately be my favorite South Park moment of all time. It's the definitive Boys Go on an Adventure episode in my mind, with Chef, aliens, Jeff Goldblum, Jag-Ons, and a taco that craps ice cream. I have such fond memories of this episode, and I think it all comes together perfectly. Alright, so that's it. That was my ranking of the South Park episodes. Please like and subscribe. Comment and let me know what you guys disagree with, because I'm sure there's a lot of it. Because I realized while doing it that these episodes probably aren't going to be ordered anywhere near what most people would normally do. So yeah, let me know what you think, and bye.